Hi guys, so it's Pavi wanting to do a quick video. I always say quick, but it never is, but I'm going to try and restrict it to about 20 minutes. So there might be a series of videos, but obviously I wanted to discuss the big news in tennis this weekend, and Jannik Sinner has somehow managed to negotiate a deal with WADA where he finally accepts some guilt on his part in that he played in failing 2 drug tests, and he has agreed a ban of 3 months starting immediately and will run through to May the 4th. Now, we will discuss about the timings of everything, as well, the convenient timing of everything, the fact that Jannik Sinner has kind of gone against what he has told us that he was going to do, is to fight his case at the Court Arbitration of Sport, but he has decided against that. So what has happened and what are my reactions? What happens from now? Let's kind of try and go into the case and try and provide a bit more information that established media will not kind of go into. And the reasons for that is a lot of these establishment media are on the same payroll as the sinners of this world, and you know, everyone is all kind of working together, it seems, to try and push a certain narrative. And you know, what I always try and do is to try and break things down for what they are. And as I said, people are always free to decide whether they want to believe what I think, or you know, my viewpoints, or if they've got their own ideas, then that's absolutely fine. But I always put out some other perspectives and contexts which we don't always get from the media. So I was surprised. I'm not going to lie, I was surprised. I had got to the point where the Court Arbitration of Sport had already given a date. So they had gone back to Jannik Sinner and WADA after WADA had basically gone to them and said, we don't agree with the ITI decision. Here is our evidence why we don't agree with it. So they would have had to have sent the Court Arbitration of Sport, because they don't take every case on. And before they do, similar to kind of how the Crown prosecution works here in the UK, they will have a look at the evidence to see, is it, you know, is this sufficient for there to be a trial? They decided that it was. So they confirmed that the date was going to take place on April the 16th, and they said it was a 2-day hearing. There would have been a decision at the end of that 2-day period. So when Jannik Sinner has said, oh, you know, he's taken this deal because he thought it might have dragged on for a year, that is false. You know, it would have taken 2 days. It was a 2-day hearing. They would have had a result after that. And there is no appeal process. The only appeal process for the Court Arbitration of Sport, if there was a technicality, so there was a technical issue or something, you know, wasn't written correctly in paperwork, and that they can appeal for that to be rescinded or kind of changed in the in a local Switzerland court. But the actual decision itself would have remained. You know, that was the final decision that they were going to make. Now, I've said in previous videos and also on posts on X that I was sure that Jannik Sinner and his team would have been in touch with WADA and tried to deal with this out of court at the time. Now, it was September the 24th where WADA appealed the decision. So that is the time where Sinner and his team should then be basically speaking to WADA and say, well, you know, let's try and sort this out of court. But at that point, they weren't even sure whether the Court Arbitration of Sport would have taken the case from WADA. So they're playing a little bit of chess here, thinking, well, maybe the Court Arbitration of Sport will say, no, we don't think that's enough evidence. The ITIA have made a decision, etc. But the Court Arbitration of Sport didn't do that. So they would have had the evidence from WADA, and they felt that that was a strong enough case for it to go to trial. They gave a date. They actually also gave 3 arbitrators. So we already had information of who was going to arbitrate for the Court Arbitration of Sport, the person that ultimately makes the decision. But then you have an arbitrator that puts forward Sinner's team evidence, and a team that puts WADA's information and evidence forward. And those arbitrators had already been done. So there's already been work done on this case. So Sinner's team has now gone into Australia, you know, and, you know, they knew that it was going to Court Arbitration of Sport before Christmas. They didn't challenge it then and after the 3 months. And the reason that I think they didn't do that is they didn't want to miss the Australian Open. So what I think has happened is they have looked at what the ITIA sanctioned Igor Swiatek, which was in January, and in January time, and WADA reviewed that case and decided that they were happy with the ITI decision. So ITIA basically gave Igor Swiatek a month, and it was also tailored, so it was not very well done. But I think that the Yannick Sinner legal team have then gone to WADA and said, well, why has Igor Swiatek had 1 month, and why are you pushing for us to have 1 or 2 years? And WADA have always said that they feel that the negligence that was committed by Yannick Sinner and or his team, that it was quite serious. So they kind of said, he's committed 2 offences here, which they never did for Igor Swiatek. So they saw this level of case a lot more serious. And they said that the minimum sanction for the level of negligence in this case was 1 year minimum. And they continued that up until kind of last week. We had the spokesman from WADA actually confirmed that they were still going to push for a 1 year ban. So the reason why it's come as a surprise is that WADA were very, very confident that they had a strong case, and they were confident that they were going to push for 1 year. Now, unbeknown to us, it's now been reported in the Gazette de Sport that Yannick Sinner's team, a day after the Australian Open, opened up the negotiations. And those people that say, oh, this was something that WADA offered them. No, WADA are the ones that are taking Yannick Sinner to court. They are not going to then go pick up the phone to Yannick Sinner and say, oh, yeah, we're going to take you to court, but actually, yeah, we'll do an offer so we don't have to go to court. No. They're taking Yannick Sinner to court. So the people that are taken to court, they are the ones that do the negotiating. It's not the opposite way around, because otherwise WADA wouldn't take it to court in the first place. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. So regardless how it's presented in his in his written statement, which isn't probably even written by Yannick Sinner, it would have been written by his lawyers at On-Site Law, and Yannick Sinner may not even looked at it. He might have said, yeah, fine, he doesn't know. And he's done no video, he's done no press conference. A high-profile player, Igor Swiatek, did a 6-minute video explaining everything. Maria Sharapova did a press conference when she was failed a drugs test. Dan Evans did a press conference. Yannick Sinner's done none of that. And that, for me, would spike suspicion. Because if you're innocent and you've got nothing to be afraid of, go to the press conference, answer everything that you can without being told what to do. So in the background, you've got Yannick Sinner's team that are picking up the phone to WADA and trying to say, look, we'll do it. Maybe they said, look, we'll do a month. But this shouldn't be happening. Once the deal has gone to the Court Arbitration of Sport and they've given a date, which they had, the arbitrators are done, that conversation shouldn't happen. So this is why tennis is in uproar at the moment, because they're just like, how can you settle with WADA over how long you take the sanction for, and when you take it for? It just doesn't happen. But they have somehow put pressure on WADA, and we don't know what pressure they put on WADA. We don't know what organisations are also wanting Sinner to have a lenient sentence where he doesn't miss slams. You look at some of Sinner's sponsorships. You look at the fact that, Italy had never had a previous number one, and, the whole sports fan there is now engrossed with Yannick Sinner. They've never had such a champion like Yannick Sinner, so it's a very pride thing for them. So was the government involved as well? I don't know, but because the Italian head of tennis has said from the day one that Sinner isn't guilty. He's already kind of said we're going to welcome him as a hero. They've never once questioned his innocence. And anyone who's read that report would look at that report and say, well, half of this story just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. If you go back to kind of the things that had happened with regards to the story and the ITIA explanation, they didn't do a lot of things. If you look at the report, they never asked for bank statements for Luke Giacomo Naldi or Umberto Ferreira. And you think, well, these two people are the ones that you blame. They're part of your team. You would ask for the bank statement, surely, just to see if there's not any large payments or unusual payments in there. You would ask for a hair sample for Yannick Sinner. which is what they did for Igor Swiatek. But in the report, there was no talk about the hair sample. Did they request it, or was it refused by Yannick Sinner? The reason why hair samples is important is it's important to distinguish intentional doping. And whilst WADA have said we don't think it's intentional doping, they never did the investigation. That was the ICIA job. They have to go on what Yannick Sinner has told them. And Yannick Sinner has told them this story, which is not corroborated externally. It's done internally through his team members. So they've said, look, this was the source. We got contaminated through a massage, and the people that are giving the evidence are Yannick Sinner's team members, or his fitness coach and his physio, the people in his team that he said he explicitly trusted and worked with for a couple of years, and we're a very close-knit unit. So all that's going off in the background. So WADA suddenly accept this offer for 3 months. I reckon Sinner's team would have gone back and said, look, we'll do a month. WADA have probably said, well, we want 6 months, and they've probably met in the middle. Why have WADA done this? We don't know the pressure that they were under. We don't know what sort of pressure they were under, and maybe they didn't want to go to court arbitration of sport. It's expensive. Had they lost that case, which is very, very unlikely, had they lost it, then they would have lost a lot of reputation. So they had a little bit of a risk there. So that's probably why they've accepted it. But what I don't understand is why didn't Yannick Sinner stick to his word? Because when he was told it was going to the court arbitration of sport, he said, we've done many hearings with the ICIA. I will do the same again with the court arbitration of sport. What has changed? So we don't know. And I don't think even Yannick Sinner knows at this point. He's been dealt with by his handlers. He was in Doha. He was in Doha practicing tennis, getting ready. This was done a day before the draw was made. So the timings of it are highly, highly suspicious. The fact that it was done straight after the Australian Open was there to minimise the damage to Yannick Sinner. He will come out of this on May the 4th, still likely to be the world number one, unless Alexander Zverev and Alcaraz kind of mop up all the tournaments up until then, and he will be able to resume all the Grand Slams. So it's a scandalous decision. I'm not too fuming though, because a lot of the responses that you see from the tennis world, so many messages, people are shocked. People are like, what? How can this even happen? How can you negotiate the term of your sanction? And they were like, well, we thought Yannick Sinner said he was innocent, or why is he now accepting this partial guilt? Why didn't he accept it at the time? He said he was totally innocent. He said, there was no fault or negligence, and he stood by that. But now he's saying, yes, he can see why there was some negligence in the team of people that he recruited. Of course there was. It wasn't very, very hard to see. And Yannick Sinner had some negligence. He was being treated by someone who apparently had an open wound, was using a spray, and he was happy for him to massage him for 8 days consecutively. Wasn't he asking the questions, what are you using? Apparently he did on the first day, but then he didn't for the next 8 days. So there was a lot of question marks over this whole case. And they will sustain. So the reason why I'm happy is that people can now see that there is 100% corruption in tennis. That is pretty sure. If you look at all the other cases that the ITIA have dealt with for people that have proved not to intentionally have doped, Simona Halep, 18 months, Tara Moore, 19 months, Nicholas Jarry, 11 months, Beatrix Haddad-Maia, 11 months. Nearly all of these were for tiny contaminations, and they were all proven to have not intentionally doped. So very, very similar cases. Now go back to a lower rank player just 3 months before, Stefano Battaglini, I don't know the pronunciation of that. I'm not even going to try and do that. But this Italian player in November 2023 tested positive for a small amount of clostebol, the exact same banned substance that Yannick Sinner was found testing positive for. This is, this whole scandal is full of coincidences. Also said to the ITIA that he believed this happened from a massage. So you just think, what are the odds of exactly the same substance and exactly the same excuse provided? So you've got to think, is this something that these people are getting together to say, well, this is a great way of getting out of it if we get caught? But the difference in this one was, Whereas Giacomo Naldi admitted that he took the cream and, you know, he was willing to testify in the hearings. He's part of Yannick Sinner's team, the tournament physio for the lower ranked players. So this isn't the players physio, it's the tournament one. Wasn't willing to say that he or she did that massage and didn't want to do in the hearing. So on that basis, the ITIA said, right, well, we not only think that you failed a drug test, we think that you intentionally doped, and they banned him for 4 years, which is the mandatory suspension if they think that you intentionally doped. And that's it. He's not able to play tennis. That was in November 2023. He's currently out until 2027. I don't know if he'll return. So if you look at the precedent set, it's completely different. And tennis are not happy at all. You know, Nick Kyrgios, we know from day one, like me, has been shouting from the rooftops to say, this is not right, what is happening. This is, something needs to be done here. He's had the wrath of all the abuse and threats, all the same what I've had, but this time you've got more. So this is why I'm happy, actually, with the outcome. You've got Stan Wawrinka, who's come out and said he doesn't believe tennis is a clean sport. Such a powerful statement. Just a one-sentence statement has now been viewed over 2.5 million times, over 35,000 likes with one sentence. And what he means when he says that he doesn't believe tennis is clean anymore is not just about the doping, but he also believes that it's not legit, as in it's not corruption-free. So a very, very important statement there. Stan Wawrinka, 3-time Grand Slammer, former world number 3, one of the most respected players on the tour. He's been on the tour 20 years. I'm sure he would have had a lot of pressure to take that tweet off. He didn't. Jessica Pegula has come out today to say they don't believe the system anymore. They don't trust the system. And they've said every single time they've been told these kind of extreme or unusual circumstances, but always seem to justify it as it's perfectly normal. And players have had enough. You've had Marion Bartoli calling it a joke. You've had a lot of the British media and the French media, they've not done this before. This is what's given me so much encouragement, because before they've kind of shut me down. Now I've had British media contact me to say, we apologise for you, for questioning you. It looks like you were right. It looks like you were actually onto something, and there is some sort of corruption or preferential treatment that's being taken here, and we need to speak about it. Even Tim Henman said, this is too convenient. You've arranged to have a ban straight after the Australian Open, and it ends just before the Rome Masters, the biggest event in Italy. The event where the Italians are desperate to see their hero play. 2 days before, and just 3 weeks before Roland Garros. So he doesn't get to miss his most important Masters event of the year, and he doesn't get to miss another Grand Slam. And looking at the ranking points, it looks very unlikely that he will lose his #1 spot as well. So, he's questioned it. Greg Rusedski's questioned it. Marcus Buckland has questioned it. Even Andy Roddick, one of the chief Yannick Sinner's defenders, has kind of questioned the timing of it. But is the timing of it a smokescreen? Are they focusing all on the timing because they don't want you to focus on the intricacies of this case? And if anyone hasn't, I implore you to read the 33-page document. Now, the other thing that is very hypocritical and has a huge red flag is Yannick Sinner has now said, yes, he agrees that his team made some errors and he decided to sack them. He didn't sack them 5 months after he failed the drug test. And Yannick Sinner knows he's failed. He said he knew immediately where the source was. It was Giacomo Naldi, who was ironically in charge of his anti-doping, who had a banned substance, which he shouldn't have even taken to America without a substance for the person that was going to be using that spray, which was Yannick Sinner. So there's already been a massive red flag. This guy is a pharmacist experienced. He knows exactly what he's doing. He gave his spray to Yannick Sinner's physio, an experienced medical healthcare professional, decided to take this spray on a small cup for 8 consecutive days. He says on the report he can't remember even if he washed his hands. He's using this without even potentially washing his hands. He didn't even use gloves. He confirmed he didn't use gloves, and he confirmed that Yannick Sinner had lesions in his body. You can't get more red flags than that in the medical healthcare profession. So, you know, is the fact that they're timing about this, they don't want to talk about this. Now, the thing is, despite all of this, Umberto Ferrero is now got a new job with Matteo Berrettini, another Italian player. So despite doing all of this, red flags, you know, blaring from all angles, he's got a job. Where are the ATP in this? You know, the WTA have indefinitely suspended Vukov, who is the coach of Elena Rybakina, based on some allegations that they were given to them from other people, or some things that they saw. There's no actual evidence. There's no one's corroborating it. In fact, Vukov and Rybakina have denied the allegations, but the WTA have still said, because of their concerns, he is indefinitely suspended. Where are the ATP's concerns over Umberto Ferreira? WADA have just said, Yannick Sinner has just said he's been negligent in anti-doping protocols. He's still allowed to work. You know, I mean, the whole thing is unbelievable. But then you look at the protectors and you know, it's really amazing for me to see when I see all the comments. People are now turning against them. You know, the amount of comments where people normally abuse me or call me toxic or, you know, a conspiracist or, you know, a racist towards me or fat shame me or whatever it is. They're now saying, actually, Pavi's got a point. There's loads of people saying, actually, we don't believe what you're saying now. You know, Mark Petrie was trying to defend him. All the comments were pretty much against him, saying, what are you talking about? So, you know, it's brilliant for me to see stuff like this, because I'm saying it's finally people are waking up to what's happening in tennis. Tennis players are now speaking up, you know, Stan Wawrinka, Jessica Pegula. Obviously, Nick Kyrgios has been very, very passionate. Yevgeny Kafelnikov has even suggested that players should boycott and not play Yannick Sinner because it's not a level playing field. You know, loads more people are speaking up. So on that aspect, it's great. And this is now going to stay with Yannick Sinner for the rest of his career. Had he even taken a year, I could have absolutely understand, if they went and said, look, you know, we want a minimum of a year. If they did an agreement and say, we'll do a minimum of a year, then I could understand that. And I would like, fine, you know, that was the term. He's agreed that. It's not 2 years, which would have been a very, very big ban. He's doing a year. He'll come back. He's served his time and, you know, he carries on. But the fact that he's done this and he's not missing any slams, people are going to say, well, you've not really had any punishment. You know, how many of those events would he have played in those few months anyway? He said he'd played a lot towards the end of 2024. He probably was going to miss a few of those events anyway. So where's the punishment? So, I don't think this is now doing Yannick Sinner any favours. I think he's been poorly advised by his handlers. I don't think he's had much control in what's happened here at all. And that's evidenced by the fact that he was happily practicing in Doha. You know, he's been controlled by powerful people that see Yannick Sinner as a very, very successful athlete and who generates a ton load of cash, and they want to be part of that. And I don't think they have their best interests in heart. So when people say, oh, yeah, you must really hate Sinner, I don't hate Sinner at all. I actually feel sorry for him. I feel sympathy in that I think he's been badly advised. I hate the system. I hate the corruption. You know, I'm passionate for tennis. My main passion, tennis, has given me so much on and off court that I am passionate that it is a fair sport. It's a sport of integrity, equality for all, and that isn't the case at the moment. And, you know, I just feel so sorry for the likes of Simona Halep and Tara Moore and loads of low-ranked players whose lives and livelihoods have been destroyed, you know, based on unintentional doping. It's, you know, it's a serious offence. So, yeah, so that, I mean, that's my kind of shortened version. My initial thoughts, were of shock, and you know, going forward, what do we do to combat this? I don't think it's going to go away. I think there's going to be more stuff that's going to come out, either through the fitness coach, the physio, if there was a whistleblower, if someone knows something that comes out. Yeah, maybe Yannick Sinner himself over time might say, actually, this is the truth, and this is what really happened. I don't know, but I don't think it's the end of this. What people can do now is, all the players who are fuming, they need to join the PTPA, and the PTPA need to step up. Ahmed Nasser's now been in charge 2 years. He talks a great game. You can listen to him and think, actually, whatever he says makes sense. But it's time for those words to turn into actions now. And I think he's playing, nice softball with the WTA and ATP. The PTPA was set up to give the players a voice in their rights. So this, they want a voice for pay rights. They want a voice for conditions, for holidays, for the anti-doping. And the ATP and the WTA are not allowing the PTA a seat at the table. They're just saying, no, we're not giving you any power. So at the moment, the PTA, which is well funded, it's well invested, there's some big investors in there. They've got the money, but they can't get the power, which is, very, very frustrating for them. And I think they're trying to kind of bring everyone on board and work with them. But at the moment, the PTPA are kind of, the only thing they can do is offer players perks and 10% off Hiltons and access to lounges and do stuff like that, which is great. But the whole point of the PTA was to have a voice. They want to be part of the pot in terms of where the money comes from, how much the players get, give the players the rights. So they need to step up now. And whether that's boycotting events, so be it. You might have to do it. We've seen it in golf. They need to be transparent with all of the players that have joined the PTPA. Let people know that this is not just, a handful of players. You've got hundreds of players now. They need to tell the world who these players are, because that will quickly tell you who wants people to change, and it will quickly tell you the ones that don't are the ones that are probably being protected by the establishment. So, it's a really, really interesting phase now in tennis. I know a lot of players are not very happy with what's going on. I think people are going to wake up. There's always like a watershed moment in anything in life and sport. And I think yesterday was that watershed moment. We will now see change in the system. I think more players will speak up. Even the media are starting to remember what their jobs are as a journalist, are starting to question what is going on here. Because before, they've all kind of sang the same hymn sheet. They've all gone on. And you've still got the same likes of Mark Petchey and the Tennis Letter that are still pushing this rhetoric that, this is acceptable, this is normal. Jill Gross has done a YouTube saying, this is perfectly normal, perfectly acceptable. They negotiated a tribunal. He was cleared by 3 tribunals. They forget to mention that the ITIA is funded solely by tennis. They forget to mention that the ATP are one of the funders of the ITIA. They forget to mention that Rolex sponsor the most lucrative product in the ATP, the Masters Series. Rolex are also the primary sponsor of Yannick Sinner. So when you look at the ITIA, there's a conflict of interest there. The lawyer that Yannick Sinner picked, part of his legal team, Kendra Potts, she actually worked for the ITIA on the other side. So she knows the system completely. She worked to try and get Tara Moore a 4-year ban, which she succeeded in. So she worked on the other side. She knows the system inside out. She also works for sports resolutions, which were all part of the tribunals. So there's a lot of red flags in this case right from the start. But the main thing for me is Yannick Sinner has finally accepted some sort of guilt. Yes, it's not for intentional doping, but he's accepted that he's had some responsibility, and that's why he has now been banned from 3 months. He will lose 2,500 ranking points and all of the prize money that he may have got up picking from the rest of the tournaments. He will come back in May, and it's going to be tough for him. If people think he's just going to be able to step on court and produce the tennis that he has in the last 12 months, they'll be wrong. He won't have any competitive action for 3 months, but he's also going to have a locker room of people that think he's going to be treated differently to them. And that's going to cause a lot of animosity. It's going to cause a lot of stress. So this is why I do feel sorry for Yannick Sinner, because I don't think his handlers have thought about that. I don't think they had a clue about the backlash that this was going to get. but it has. So there are my initial views. I said a short video, it's 30 minutes again. But I'm going to be following up with other videos. There's a lot of people that have asked me a lot of questions. If there's any other questions that I've not answered, put them in the comments. Let me know. Let me know what you want me to talk about. As ever, I will talk. Nothing is off the books with me. I will talk to you straight and as honest as I can be. And you know, I'll be doing more videos to kind of see what happens, and probably take you right back to March 2024, because there was 5 months where we didn't know what was happening. And it's important all of those stages are covered off, from his tonsillitis, from his hip injury, from him suddenly missing Olympics. There was a lot of stuff that was going on that we weren't privy to. So we need to keep digging. If you haven't already done so, please like, subscribe and share on my YouTube, Pavi G. I'll be launching my very own podcast next month, where I'm going to be interviewing people from tennis, people, and there's going to be no filters. People are going to be open to speak their mind. You know, I'll speak to anyone, you know, whether it's the opposing side, the people that have got similar opinions. For me, I'm all about healthy debate, and listening to both sides of the story is so important for any level of journalism, to provide context, perspective and facts to your knowledge. You know, you can't keep only presenting one side of the information. It's important that you present both sides. So yeah, that's it for me for now. I will obviously do some more videos as well, but wherever you are, whoever you support, wishing you a great rest of the weekend. There's not much of it left now. Take care, God bless, and I will be back with another video soon. Bye.